In this video, we're going to cover some main ideas such as GCF, factoring a trinomial using divide, reduce, swing, and Punnett squares. First one we're going to do is GCF. So you have two terms. Let's take a look at the first term and second term, and let's look at the numbers, the coefficients first. What number goes into both 8 and 22? That number would be 2. All right. So whenever I'm just going to go through each one individually. All right, so let's look at the x's. The most I can take out are 3 x's. This one has 3, this one has 5, so I can at least take 3 out. And when I look at the y's, I can take all 4 of these out, and since I have 6 over here to the right, I can take 4 out of there as well. Now, when you reduce them, 8 divided by 2 is 4. Oh, and let's go ahead and put this down here. 2x to the third, y to the fourth, and parentheses. So now, whatever we have left up here on the up top right here is what's going to go down here in the parentheses. The x cubes cancel out, and the y to the fourths cancel out. So you're left with 4. Up here, you're left with 11. Oh, hold on. So there's a minus 11 right there. The x's, I'm left with 2, and the same thing with the y's. So I'm left with minus 11 x squared y to the second. And this right here is factored by GCF. There's nothing else I can do. So one thing you might want to look at is, here's a difference. So is this difference of perfect squares? 4 is a perfect square, but 11 is not. So I'm done. All right, let's go to the next screen. On this next problem, we want to do difference of squares. Now, it's the difference of perfect squares. So if you look at this, 1 is a perfect square and 25 n squared is a perfect square. So what that allows me to do is make 2 sets of parentheses. Now, how does 1 break up? 1 and 1. I'm going to put a minus and a plus, and then 25 n squared breaks down into 5n and 5n. And the way I know that this is a difference of squares factor, if I were to multiply these back, the middle terms would cancel out, leaving me with 1 minus 25n squared. Let's look at this one. It is a difference of squares. 16x squared reduces down to 4x and 4x. 49y squared reduces down to 7y and 7y. So I'm going to have in the middle, I'm going to have a plus and a minus. All right, and that's pretty much it. Let's double check. This is not a difference of squares, so we're done. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to go into factoring a trinomial using a couple of methods. The first method is we're going to use Punnett squares. So let's pick a polynomial that has a leading coefficient other than 1. Like, for instance, let's look at 4y squared plus 7y minus 2. We're going to go ahead and make our Punnett square first. And I know in that first box goes the 4y squared. So that's this first term. And then the last term goes right here, so a minus 2. What we need to do is we need to figure out what goes in these two boxes. Okay? And in doing so, we're going to multiply a times c. A times c. So 4 times 2 is 8. So I need the factors of 8 that subtract to give 7. Well, I have 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. The only two that subtract to give 7 are 1 and 8. So that's what I'm going to put in here in the middle. I'm going to put a 1y and an 8y. Now, we've discussed in class that this y right here tells me that both signs in the middle are going to be opposite. That means the larger number is going to be positive. Okay? So I'm going to leave, that means the 1 gets to be negative, the 8 stays positive. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out what they have in common. And let's look at these two right here. What does negative 1y and negative 2 have in common? They both have a negative 1 in common. And now what I'm going to do is just play a matching game. I want to know what negative 1 times what gives me this negative 2. Well, I know that negative 1 times positive 2 is negative 2. Now what I want to do is I want to figure out this one right here. This 2 right here, times what gives me 8y. Well, I know that times 4y. So 2 times 4y gives me this 8y. Now, I'm going to do this box here. 4y times what gives me 4y squared? And that simply is just y. And look, if you look what you have right here, you have 4y minus 1 times y plus 2. And that is using Punnett squares. Now, we're going to use the same problem, except now I'm going to use divide, reduce, swing. All right? The divide, reduce, swing. Some people call it slip and slide. So the problem is 4y squared plus 7y minus 2. The first thing you do is you take this a, you bring it to the back, and you rewrite it. Y squared plus 7y, and 4 times 2 is 8. Notice that leaves me with a leading coefficient of 1, and that's what I want, because now I can make a simple factoring. I need the factors of 8 that subtract to give 7, and we've already figured that out, and that's 1 and 8. And remember, it has the largest number gets this sign, so positive 8 and a minus 1. Well, remember, y times y gives me y squared. So now I'm ready to do the divide, the reduce, and the swing. The divide, I'm going to bring back this 4, and you have to bring it back right here. So that's the divide part. Now we're going to look at those fractions, and we're going to reduce if we can. All right, now, in this case, 1 over 4 can't reduce anymore. So I've done the divide, I've done the reduce, now I'm going to swing, and I'm going to swing this 4 to the front, and I get 4y minus 1. This 8 over 4 reduces down to 2 over 1. 2 over 1 reduces down to 2, so you know what? I can just simply write this as y plus 2. And this is the exact same thing as the previous one. And therefore, you have two methods that you can use now.